welcome everyone. Is that all right? Am I supposed to start now? I think so. Hello and welcome everyone to this webinar. I'm Sue Benson from the Journal of Dementia Care, welcoming you very warmly. We've got some terrific speakers today and a really interesting topic. They're going to tell you all about it, and I'll introduce them properly in a minute. Just to say that we are recording this webinar, so if you don't want your face to be in it, please turn your camera off. And afterwards, we will email everyone, Beth will email everyone, and the slides will be sent to you, and also the recording will be available on our YouTube channel on the website, journalofdementiacare.co.uk. So, oh yes, and we're sending a feedback form afterwards, which we'd be very grateful if you'd quickly fill in. It's only very short. So to introduce our speakers today, we have Claire Sir from Leeds Beckett University and Charles Cross from Anglian Care. So thank you and welcome. Carry on.
Okay, thank you. Great. Sorry, I got a strange Zoom thing popping up there. Okay, so yeah, I'm Claire Sir from Leeds Beckett University. I'm Professor of Dementia Studies. And Charles, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Charles Cross, Director of Anglian Care and also Ashley Care, so own and operate two home care businesses within Essex.
Great, so hopefully you should be able to see my screen now that I'm sharing. And Charles and I are going to talk to you today about a virtual reality dementia training programme that we've been involved in developing together and the evaluation of that. So virtual reality as a method for dementia training. I think probably everybody will have heard of virtual reality and may have come across different aspects of that in their day-to-day lives. It's becoming much more accessible. A lot of our kids have now got VR headsets and are playing games in virtual reality, and maybe some of you have actually tried different types of training. There's certainly lots of different options emerging out there. And one of the reasons for that is it opens up possibilities for enhanced approaches to experiential learning, particularly for groups of staff like those in home care, where actually meeting together and doing experiential learning activities as a group might be more challenging just because of how care works and the lack of opportunities that people often have to be able to get together in groups. And one of the things that we do know is that experiential learning is really important in dementia care. So being able to be hands-on, to do activities that make you think about what it might be like to be a person with dementia, or to think through care scenarios in a safe way and that's not actually in practice, and to be able to problem solve and think and discuss those is really important in terms of people's learning and their ability to apply that learning into practice. And it also helps develop empathy, so a sort of sense of really understanding and empathising with the person with dementia, and that's really important for person-centred care delivery. To date, there's not been much published research about the use of VR for dementia education and training. I think there are more publications coming out, but often training is an area of research an area of practice that quite often people don't necessarily research and write up. So there's probably a lot more going on in the field than we've actually got evidence for. So yeah, the more studies that we can do around the impact of VR training to look at its possibilities and opportunities and the impacts it has on learning is really important. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about the evaluation that we're doing on this, but first I'm going to hand over to Charles, who's going to tell you more about the actual journey of developing the VR training.
Yeah, so thanks, Claire. And if I just sort of take you back to the start of this, we were in a position where, especially throughout COVID, and we actually started this project just slightly before COVID, but the same problem that we had within social care, and that is, how do you have meaningful training? How do you give your team meaningful learning development opportunities? And unfortunately, due to operational efficiencies or due to a lack of funding, many social care companies have decided to go down the e-learning route. And this route has its place, and it can definitely ensure that a learner has a large quantity of training and can do that within the convenience of their own home, or can do that wherever they feel fit. And again, that has its benefits, but is that really a meaningful learning opportunity? And I suppose that's where this started. It was about, how do we actually upskill the care workforce? There's a lot of discussion on upskilling the care workforce, that social care can become more, and that it can become on parity with the health service. But in order to do that, we really need to upgrade and improve our learning and development opportunities for our team. And often these can't be multiple months or multiple year MVQs. These need to be within a short space of time, because the social care induction period is actually a short space of time. So we need training that's going to be as efficient, but is more impactful. The learner leaves it with far more knowledge and more experience. One of the things that I noticed when we were starting out on the project and we were gaining feedback from our care team, and we have down here about co-production, and I'll speak to that a little bit more. But what we kept hearing was experience is everything, and people need that experience within social care. So virtual reality offers you a unique ability to be able to gain that experience within a safe environment. So you're able to feel, you're able to see, and you're able to act within the environment. And I'll show you a video slightly later on. And you're not harming or putting anyone at risk, because you're doing it in a virtual reality environment. And that's really the power of what virtual reality offers, in addition to the accessibility. In order for someone to have a face-to-face training, they would have to come in sufficient numbers in order to make it work for the organization. And additionally, you'll have to get a trainer to be within the room and probably have a full day out. So again, we're looking at, from an organizational perspective, you want to be able to have the accessibility of e-learning. You want to be able to ensure that the costs aren't going to be absolutely, disproportionate, but you do not want to reduce the quality. You actually want to improve the quality, and you want to be able to give people experience before they go out and step foot and have their first few care shifts. Now, every organization will have trial shifts, they'll have shadow shifts, and they'll have mentoring. But how can we embed it within our training that they're gaining that same experience before they go out and deliver care? And that was one of the initial objectives of this training, is to combine those things so that this could be a really impactful training course for learners. We have here soft skills training. And again, one of the things that when we were looking into our own training regime as we were developing this, we realized that a lot of our training is skewed towards the regulation. And again, that's extremely important, and we should be doing that. But how much of it is practical? When someone tells our care organization, my mum had great care, she had phenomenal care, I really enjoyed Jane or someone coming in. What does she mean by that? And often what she means is the communication skills, the soft skills, the decision-making on behalf of her mum is spot on, and is something that therefore they're delivering high quality care. So back reviewing on our training regime, how much of our training is tailored towards those experiences and harnessing the best possible care and really promoting those interactions that deliver the best care that, this family member may have said that our care team have delivered. And that really is within soft skills, and really virtual reality offers you the ability to enhance them, as Claire mentioned about the empathy. But you'll see within this situation, you're seeing Irene, you're seeing the care team member, and you're seeing how they're interacting for good and for bad, and then you're able to pick up on that. 80% of information is processed visually, and often people are visual learners, and now that can vary on person to person. But the engagement levels, and Claire will speak to whether this is transpired within the data that we're collecting, but the engagement levels, we have a hypothesis that they will increase, and that people will be more engaged, as long as that has been met with a chance to have feedback. So within the co-production stage, within the initial stages, we started to tailor learning objectives, aligned it with the dementia training standards framework, as Claire will speak to, and ensured that we had a clear outline of what we wanted to have within this training. Because again, this is one training session for dementia care, and we have ambitions for more, and we'll speak to that. So once we had an initial script, we spoke with both our care teams. So again, the care team was sent the full script, information was given back, and we tailored things as to their real experiences. Again, we spoke with family members and those living with dementia. And actually, we had a director on the project, Benoit, and Benoit hadn't had too much exposure to the care sector. So I said, before you go and direct this project, come with me for 2 weeks and we'll shadow some of our care team delivering care to those living with dementia. And I think that was an eye-opening experience for him. It meant that he was able to garner the interactions, the way in which conversation can be unique when you're conversing with someone living with dementia, and the different techniques that you might need to use. And again, that's going to be extremely important in the way that we're filming it, because we had an emphasis on making this as lifelike and realistic as possible, so that when that person goes on their first shift, or again, they're having refresher training after 12, 24 months, 36 months, it feels similar to what they're experiencing, so that they can really connect to it. And we believe in connecting to it, they're going to be able to have that knowledge for a longer period of time. So we've had early piloting and testing. That's within our own organisation. That's within branches of Home Instead. That's with other domiciliary care companies as well. And we'll speak to more about that in terms of the expansion of the programmes after. But the feedback that we have is that people want to come in for training. And again, that's an important part, is how engaged and how much do people feel that there's actually value in what a care provider is offering. So hopefully we've gone some part in doing that. Next slide, Claire. Thank you. So to give you a brief overview of the dementia training, we have an introduction, and Claire runs through the objectives of the training. She sets the scene with an introduction to Irene. Irene is the lady living with dementia. And again, something that was extremely important was how much of our care plans, our risk assessments, our Care Act assessment, how much of all of the documentation that we need as a care provider for CQC, we have all of this information, yet our training, when we deliver it, is often quite generic. So what we decided was we were going to do, or Claire within her script, she decided to do it within a case study of one individual, so that we could really tap into their life history, their mobility, their communication, their sleep, and other forms of their care. And this was in order to hone into the fact that in order to deliver person-centered care, we would have to touch on these different aspects throughout the script and then throughout the training, so that person, that learner, is able to be in that mindset for when they go out and deliver care. So we filmed this in a location and we picked 4 of the different rooms. We wanted to give variety in terms of the different settings. Again, we wanted to cover the different times of day, the different activities that are often completed, and the different types of care that's being delivered. So whether that's assisting with meal prep, or whether that's assisting someone out of bed, assisting them with getting changed for the day, etc. So we covered 4 different scenarios, and again, I've got a video of one of the scenarios which we'll show after. And if I run you through just the different scenarios briefly and what we covered within them. So the bedroom scenario, within that scenario, and that's one of the ones, no, the bathroom scenario, sorry, is the first one, which is one of the ones that we're going to show you the video of. What you'll see within that scenario is really about attentiveness, it's about communication, it's the ability to be able to be clear and concise with your communication, so that the person living with dementia understands the sequencing of events. So they ask, and again, I'll go into this with more detail, but they ask for a certain activity to be completed. And again, because of the way those soft skills weren't used in this case, you get to see what a potential outcome could be, and then an escalation from that situation. So again, it's sometimes because of this risk-free environment, we're afforded the ability to show the bad things because we learn from our mistakes. And actually, we're more skewed to remembering the bad things that happen than the good things that happen. I think we can all sort of speak to that in our own lives. And that's because we're hardwired in that way. We're hardwired to remember bad things. So again, what this opportunity of using virtual reality allows us to do is allows us to really ingrain what can happen in any situation. I think often within training, we have a focus, and we have a focus on here's the right thing to do. Definitely, this is the thing that we should do. But we all know care is a very fluid environment. It's a very volatile environment. You have to be able to think on your feet. You have to be able to make decisions and make correct decisions in environments that are changing. So again, this speaks to the power of virtual reality. It speaks to the situational, the fact that it can be situational, and the fact that we can learn from the different situations. And then within the bedroom and the kitchen scenario, the living room and the kitchen scenario, another aspect that Claire wrote into the script, which I think is really, really important, is before the scenario starts, you have green points throughout the room. And these green points are different objects or parts of the room furniture or a TV or hearing aids, or again, the mat and the placemat for meal prep hadn't been laid and things like that. So again, how can we be visual in terms of not just being vocal in terms of what we're asking someone to do, but also how can we be more prepared in terms of the visuals, and how can we insist that person if again they may have any difficulties in understanding speech. So again, it's different ways of communicating as well. So before the scenario starts, you have these points around the room, and then as you click on each point, Claire will then pop up and ask, does this help or does this hinder the care that's going to be delivered? And I think too often, maybe due to time pressures, maybe due to home care. Home care is a situation that you're in there. You can often be task orientated. Again, we're trying to come away from this as a sector, but you're in there. You have your app. You have your list of things to do. But how often do we take a moment, take a step back, and say, how conducive is this environment to delivering good care? So what we're trying to have within our training is right before that scenario starts, we ask the learner, how conducive is this environment to delivering good care? And so then the learner goes around the room, picks the different objects within the room, and again, they can sort of get in that habit of making sure that they're assessing the environment. Another scenario, which is the living room scenario again, because we use the living room twice, is scenario 4. And scenario 4 is a really interesting scenario because we've used a decision-making point. So we decided as well, because of, or Claire added in, and I think this is incredible when she did it, because it's completely novel in terms of using virtual reality and then having the ability to decide where your learning goes. So decide where that situation goes based on your decision making. So within this scenario, the care team member comes into the room. Irene's there. She's looking for her keys. She's flustered. And the care team member, she introduces herself, says, "Hi, Irene, how are you?" And then Irene is flustered. She's frustrated. She really wants to find her keys. And she believes she needs to pick up her daughter, Julie, from school. Her daughter, Julie, is actually much older. So she's in no need to pick her up. And at that point, you're given a decision, and you're asked which approach should you use? And within those approaches, we have the distraction-based approach, the validation-based approach, the logic and reasoning-based approach, or the white lie-based approach. So there's 4 options, and you're able to pick which option that you would like to choose. Now, once you've chosen an option, you can go back and choose another option, which again is equally as valuable because you're seeing a likely outcome of that approach being used. And again, we're not saying that this is definitely going to be the case, so much so that actually after the approach is used, and as a learner, you're able to see, okay, if I distract Irene, what does that do? If I validate her feelings, what does that do? If I tell Irene, this is your reality, you are 82 years of age, your husband's passed away, Julie's much older, you don't need to pick her up from school. What is that going to do to her? And particularly you'll see in the logic and reasoning, the one I've just outlined, you'll see a complete escalation in frustration, and you'll see the scenario, go quite badly. And again, that stays with you. So then when you know whether it's the distraction, the white lie, or the validation, based on experiencing a potential approach, you're able to then have that hold with you because you're feeling it. As Claire said, you have that empathy towards Irene in the situation. After each approach, Claire then does explain. She explains for good or for bad. Some approaches can be used in particular situations and has a granular sort of description of where these could be used and which one is ultimately best to use. But again, that can be a combination dependent on the situation. And I think within the writing of the script, we've remained quite flexible in terms of there is a right answer, but there can be variants within that. So Moonhub, a little bit more about Moonhub's technology, and I won't get too into depth, but I will touch on it slightly, is they have a patented technology, and the spot and jot technology that they've patented measures spatial awareness, initiative, reaction time, accuracy, and knowledge. And the way that this works is within the headset, as you're viewing the scenario, at any one point in time, the headset and the software behind it is tracking where you're looking. So whether it's spatial awareness and seeing how the scenario is evolving, your initiative, are you looking as the situation and scenario is evolving over time? And again, reaction time will be based to how you press the trigger if there's certain action points, and accuracy and knowledge are going to be in terms of the answers that you actually ultimately give and whether they're right or wrong or not. So this isn't like conventional, traditional learning in the sense that you're right or you're wrong and that's it. There is more of a spectrum of measuring learners, and this is ultimately, again, one of the aspects that Moonhub brings uniquely to training, and the ability for then managers to access Moonhub's data hub. And Moonhub's data hub allows managers or allows organization owners to be able to not only see on a granular level your learners, what their different answers to different questions were. So again, you can even look into spatial awareness, initiative, reaction time, accuracy, and knowledge of each individual question. But then you can also look, okay, how's that group of people doing? How's that branch doing? How's that area doing? How were we as an organization doing in total? So I think, again, you can use this information to influence your own decisions in terms of who might require different refresher training, who might require additional training in general, mentoring, shadowing, etc. Or there might be particular points because they might be great in a few scenarios, but it may actually have been in scenario 4 where they're asked to do a different, which approach would you use? Maybe they've learned a different approach in the past, and they're still doing that today. So again, you're able to be flexible because of the way that the Moonhub Data Hub tracks each individual learner, and then gives the managers or organisation the ability to look at that. And another really important part of this is the reflective learning. And Claire, in some of the publications that she's written, she'll speak more to it than I can. But the importance of reflective learning. So it was central within the development of this that we had this, and really we can reinforce. Sorry, I just saw something within the chat. If any questions, yeah, and I hope I'm doing good for time, but you can stop me at any point. Okay, good. So again, reflective learning is extremely important. There's really two parts to this. There's one part which is you're able to connect the Pico headset, and also now it's interoperable with Oculus as well with the new Moonhub version 4 platform. So again, there's the way that the technology is improving over time means that the Moonhub platform needs to be interoperable between different headsets. But to give you the technicals, yes, it is a Pico headset for usage currently. You're able to screencast that onto a TV. So you could actually be in the same room, and you could have a group of learners around you, and someone could be doing the training and others could be watching that person doing the training. And this is a really interesting use case, because what you could then have is a collaborative learning approach. Someone could do a scenario, see what they feel. You can see how they're reacting. You can see how they're interacting with the scenario. And then afterwards, everyone collectively together can discuss. They can give their different opinions, and then ultimately they can take turns and they can all do the virtual reality training themselves. And that gives an opportunity to reinforce, as I said, but also discuss any different approaches or different objects or different techniques within each scenario that may be complementary to what we've already been putting in. Because of how dynamic, and this is really the benefits of situational based training or simulation based training, is because of how dynamic it is, there can be a real engaging conversation afterwards, and that can happen. So again, we talk about the accessibility, we talk about the operational benefits of delivering in virtuality training for care organizations. But if you do want to get everyone in the room and you do want them to just experience it together, and you're able to do that as a care organization, then that is extremely beneficial as well. And then the second part to the reflective practice booklet is the reflective practice booklet. And that is a downloadable PDF that is on the Moonhub website. And that actually asks you different questions throughout about the training, and sort of gives you the opportunity to reflect and really embed the learning. So again, if we look at some of the different examples of the different situations, you may have what was good or bad within this scenario or situation, and you'll see the good practice and examples of good practice, and then examples of bad practice. And then the reflective practice booklet may be asking you around the good and bad care practices within different situations. So again, it's really embedding. It's giving the learner a specific time to digest what they've just experienced. Because again, if we're in virtual reality and the training is around 45 minutes to an hour, dependent on how many wrong answers you want to listen to or review. Because again, after you pick the right answer, even if you pick all the right answers, the training then allows you to go back in, and it says, do you want to now listen to the wrong answers? I think if I can speak for Claire in this situation, she was extremely, it's again quite novel in the sense that normally when you have multiple choice questions, you have three answers that are relevant, and then you have two answers which are completely irrelevant to the situation, and it's almost pointing you towards it. But what seems to be unique about this script as well is the wrong or right answers still add equally equal value. So we really encourage people to actually spend the time to listen to, not only click on the wrong answer, and that could be within a multiple choice question, but then there's narration after as to why it's wrong or right. And again, we've found additional learning and hope that can really improve the skills of our care workforce as they're doing it. And next slide, I think. And so should I just jump through to the quick video, and then we'll go straight on to the study after. Sorry, I've just turned off my own video instead of sharing the video. And if anyone has any questions now would probably be a good time. Can I get a recording of the class? No, it's going to be sent out. Okay, great. Can everyone see my screen? Yes, good. Okay, so I'm going to speak through this, and I've just put it on an increased speed as well, so that again, we can send video clips afterwards. But I really want to be able to describe what's happening within this situation. And if I just turn that down, I don't know if you could hear that, but it was coming through my headphones. So really within, at the start of each scenario, you're seeing Claire outline the learning objectives. And that really focuses the learner on what they're going to experience and what they should be looking out for, so that they're not just coming into a scenario that they don't know where they're going to, what they're going to encounter, and what they need to be looking out for. And it's important in terms of intuition, etc. So again, you're within the bathroom. Initially, you're seeing the care team member, and if I just pause that there, she's just shouting through to Irene. She's washing up a flannel, and if I actually slow this down slightly, because I don't think I can speak as fast as it's going. So initially, we have this point here with the mat, and this was something just subtle and something that you wouldn't be able to have within a normal training session. But are we looking out for something where there may be object misidentification? And initially, when you see with the volume and you're in the experience, you see a negative reaction by Irene. And it wasn't until the care team member actually steps on it, she then seems to calm down. So again, we're just using subtle situational examples that you wouldn't otherwise be able to give in just conventional training. And immediately here, so she walks Irene to the sink and just asks, she said, just get on with that. She doesn't actually go into depth. So Irene's been given a towel, get on with that. She believes she's cleaning the mirror. She's not been asked. So again, you're seeing a frustration. There's a lack of time, a poor communication, and you see the subtleties within the communication when you actually experience it. And then beyond this point, you get a frustration and an escalation. And then again, we review via the questions after, what could we have done differently? And then not forcing, but encouraging again, Irene. So then within this scenario, we use multiple choice questions. And again, we use different types of learning throughout the training. And again, to introduce herself to Irene, approach Irene with a warmer tone of voice, speak slowly and reduce the amount of information and explanation of activity. So again, these are different aspects that have been picked up, and you just tilt your head and then click in terms of the answers that's given. And whether it's the different approaches used or different multiple choice questions, that then feeds straight back to the Moonhub data hub, and then you're able to see for good or for bad. So we go through, and again, you'll notice that Claire is speaking after each of these, because she's reinforcing the learning with a brief description as to why the answer is right or wrong. And again, here's the prompt to go back and select the wrong answers before you then go on to the next question. And then we note the dark colored bath mat, and also explaining all the care, a lack of explanation as to what is happening. So that's one of the scenarios. There's 5 additional scenarios. And again, each question has that explanation afterwards. I can send some more videos. I didn't want to spend the whole, because again, it is 45 minutes to an hour. So I'm more than happy to, if anyone wants to reach out. But for now, I'll sort of pass on to Claire and she can speak to some of the research we've been doing.
Great, thanks, Charles. So hopefully that's given you a real flavour of the VR training that we developed together, and the sort of process that we went through to really refine the content and make sure it was really relevant to what the Homecare staff were saying they needed. So what we've done as part of this is an evaluation, and this is ongoing, but I've updated this since we presented this at the UK Dementia Congress in November last year, because it was very early days then, and we've had more responses since then. But what we wanted to do was really look at, what do people think of this training? Are there any refinements that we can make to it? What does it mean in terms of learning? And I've been doing that. So while Charles and the team at Anglian Care and the other providers who've been sort of piloting the training are helping in terms of distribution of our survey to the staff, they are independent of any of the actual research activity and are very open to whatever we find, whether that is positive or sort of developmental feedback. So what we're doing is it's an online questionnaire, because obviously that's while it's not everybody's cup of tea doing questionnaires online, it's the easiest way to reach staff who are quite geographically dispersed. And they fill out a questionnaire before they complete the VR training, immediately afterwards, and then within 2 months. And we've got questions in that survey. We've tried to keep it as short as possible, whilst also making sure we gathered as much information as we could about their reaction to the training and what they thought of it, as well as some of the impacts on their learning and whether they feel that it will be useful in their day-to-day practice. So we've got demographics, so about the people who've taken the training. We've got a questionnaire about their dementia knowledge, about their attitude and their confidence in caring for people with dementia. And then we've got their reactions to the training. So they fill that out immediately post-training. And it's actually 4 different home care providers now that are providing data on this. 3 we've got data from, and then 1 we're waiting for them to start. What I'm going to talk to you today about is the reactions to the training. We've not got enough data in yet to do any meaningful analysis completely on the impacts on knowledge, attitudes and confidence. So we'll look forward to sharing that when we do. So our early findings, and these have gone up quite a bit, but they're not quite at the numbers we want to yet. Charles is a bit disappointed we didn't get more by now. He's like, we're going to get these. It's really difficult to get staff responses. And so I'm really pleased with these, actually, compared to many other evaluations we've done where we're trying to get staff to fill out questionnaires, especially online and after training, and particularly that 2 months after training. It's quite easy to get staff immediately before they do it and afterwards. So we expected that to be lower, but they're good numbers, and they are going up. In terms of all participant characteristics, as you might expect for the home care workforce, our participants are largely female. They are predominantly white, but we do have a number of participants who are from non-white backgrounds. We've got a good mix of age ranges, so that's good in terms of people who range from 18 right through to the 56 to 65 category, and there's a fairly good spread across there. I'm working in home care. Charles might know more about how representative this is of the home care workforce, but we've got quite a lot of people who have only been working in the home care sector for between 0 and 5 years. But then we do have a good range as well of people who've been working in the sector as well, up to 20 or more years. So again, we've got a good spread of experience of people. So these are, some people will be new and might be doing this as part of induction training, but for other people, this is training as part of their ongoing professional development in their role. We asked people about whether they've ever completed any dementia training in the past, and about 2/3 of people have completed some kind of dementia training, with about 1/3 of people not completing any. So this is their first dementia training they've accessed. And then for those people who said yes, we asked what training this was, and they could tick all that applied. So a lot of them have covered this during induction training and had some dementia content there. We've got people, a small number of people who'd done another short course of around an hour or two, a few people who'd done a half or a full day training, and then, you know, quite a number really, 8 people who'd done more than a day's training. So we've got some people who've done probably quite a minimal amount, but we do have some experienced staff here as well who've also completed much more in-depth dementia training. So in terms of reaction to training, we asked them how satisfied they were with the training. And as you can see, either very satisfied or satisfied. The person who put very dissatisfied, I think they ticked the box at the wrong end, because when you actually go through and then look at their comments, they talk about how much they enjoyed the training. So I think they meant to tick very satisfied, but they've had to go in there because I'm not allowed to change research data. That's what they ticked. So people really, really enjoyed the training. How relevant was it to their role and their needs in their role? 100% relevant, but again, we've got this one person who said very irrelevant, but then gave a positive review, who I think was the same person who said very dissatisfied. So I think they may have got the ends of the scale muddled there. And how confident did people feel in putting this into practice? We'd got nearly 98% of people who said they were confident or very confident in being able to put that learning into practice, which I think for us and what we aimed for was really important. That's what we wanted, was training that was going to be something that people thought they could take part in, but they could directly take into the day-to-day practice and start doing what they'd learnt, and have the sort of power to do that, the confidence and the knowledge and skills to be able to put it into practice. We also asked them, how much did you learn via VR compared to any previous non-VR training that you've had? And this didn't have to be around dementia, but obviously we've got quite a number of people who had done some previous dementia training. And most people said either they felt they learned a lot more with VR training or a bit more with VR training, and then a few people who said about the same. So when we asked them to give an explanation, so there was a box where they could write a bit more about why they gave that particular answer and what it is that they particularly thought. So one of the things people said was that you feel more involved, and that's very much what Charles was talking about that being there, being in the scenario, feeling what it feels like, but in a safe way, to be able to feel what it's like to do that job, to live through those different scenarios and the different reactions. So, you know, VR training puts you into the situation, whereas non-VR training, you observe from the outside. And people saying it's much easier to understand because you can see, you're there, you're in the environment, you feel it. And when you're there with the headset on, you are in the middle of the room, and you turn around with the headset and the room is all around you. So you don't quite get that perspective in the videos Charles had shown, but you kind of need to sit on a swivelly chair and you spin round and the room is around you. And Irene and the care worker are either there in front of you or in the bedroom scenario, they actually walk past you because they're going to the wardrobe and then to the window. So you're very much in the centre of the action and the activity that's going on around you. And then, you know, the non-VR doesn't give you that sort of perspective. So you might be learning the same information, but this sort of visual and the being there allows you to understand the subject more clearly. We asked people what they liked about the VR training, and again, it was the interactivity. It's very clear, interactive, feeling really immersed in the scenarios. It being uncomplicated and clear. So people liked how everything was explained and how interactive things were, and they're breaking it down into those answers. They liked the real life and the ability to see both sides of the situation. So because you're sitting there from the outside, it gives you that chance to see both things from the perspective of Irene, but also the home care worker. And I think that's quite important, you know, in understanding why the home care worker might do certain things. And you perhaps don't get that if you are, some people, you'll see on the next thing, people wanted to be the home care worker and to kind of do the doing. And that can give you some learning, and it gives you a chance to try things out. But I think actually this perspective of watching what unfolds gives you a chance to sit back and reflect on both perspectives in a bit more of an objective way. And the real life scenarios there. So what would people change? There wasn't a lot of things people said they would change. Nothing came up quite a lot. Most of the time it was things like more scenarios, more clients, so not just having Irene, covering different forms of dementia and how that impacts people, having more in-depth training. So people saying, this felt like an overview and it covered some useful things, but they'd like to then have the opportunity to cover some topic areas in more depth. And then there were some practical things, so making the headset more comfortable, needing to move and turn around in the scenario. And one person said they'd like to see things from Irene's point of view, and to actually be more Irene. And that's an interesting perspective, and whether we could achieve that, because if you're trying to put yourself in Irene's shoes, you have to then create the environment that might look more like Irene, but then you're relying on the person to interpret it. So I think it's quite a challenge to have the camera being Irene and you are her perspective, but to still be able to empathise with Irene in the same way that you can from the videos of seeing her reactions. So in summary, participants found the training relevant and engaging. They felt that the VR was as good as or better than previous training that they'd attended that was non-VR. They wanted more in-depth training, and they wanted to see possibilities for additional perspectives and different scenarios. So really positive feedback throughout, really, and people saying, can we have more of this? Just a quick plug that Charles was talking about just before everybody joined us, but a lot of what we embedded in the scenarios and the sort of knowledge that I brought to designing the training, we've covered in a book that is out now about education and training in dementia care. And actually the VR training makes one of the case studies that we've got in the book around innovative approaches. But that's got different chapters on training in different environments, learning theories, and some of the good practice guidelines that we have applied in terms of developing this training. So we'll go through the questions now in the chat. I can see that quite a few have popped in there, so I'll have a read of those in a second. But those are our email addresses, or I think yours as well is charles@angliancare.com. Is it Charles? Yeah. As well, if you want to get to Charles directly, but we're also happy to take emails if you've got any questions afterwards. So what I'll do is I'll stop sharing and we'll perhaps just have a look at some of the questions. So Emily says she'd like to watch other videos. So I'm sure Charles will be able to send those out if you get in touch with him. How do you choose the different answer cards with what's HMD?
Different answer card of HMD. Different answer cards, I assume, would be about. So essentially, what happens is there's a small circle within the middle of the screen as you move around, and I have just had a wasp fly into my room. So again. And it's coming to be in the presentation, so that serves me right for leaving my window open. Yeah, so it basically follows you around your room as you're looking, and then you click which is on a trigger. On an Oculus, there's 2 triggers, so depending on the hardware, that changes. By the way, I have just put in my updated email address as well, so if anyone wants to contact me about the different videos, then please do. Do we have any more questions?
Yeah, so Sue's put one in about is the resource and training available to other home care providers to buy?
Yes, if you visit the Moonhub website, which I can send it to you, or you can reach out to me directly. And again, I can get someone within the team to contact you, but I will put in the email, the website now. It is currently £5 per user per month. So again, it's equivalent to any learning platform out there. That was another thing that was core within our focus. I'm a care provider. I understand the pressures that care providers are under, and we want that to be something that's accessible to all. So yes, you can reach out to the Moonhub team directly. And then is this a good quick segue into
yes,
quickly? Yeah, some of the other. Yeah, so just to let you all know as well, and pricing may change in the future. And this is not a sort of sales situation, but pricing will probably change in the future because we've worked with the University of Essex on moving and assisting training. So again, we filmed this, and this is being developed as we speak. We worked with AIT MediHelp, and the founder of that company who does training across the country is a 25 years pharmacist, and also is a member of the Royal Pharmaceutical Society. He's written a medication administration training program. We have a Dementia care home setting one, which was completely on the basis of Claire's work and then slightly tweaked and added to with Izzy Latham, who is co-author on the book, and I couldn't recommend the book more, so please do look at that as well. And then finally, we have safeguarding training, which again we've filmed. So all 4 of these new training modules have been filmed, and they will be out towards the end of this year, if not early next year. They will all be out by February the 12th, and the Moonhub team probably won't like me saying that because it puts them under a bit of time pressure. Sorry, I'm still dodging the wasp. But there we are. So we've got some really good training. We've collaborated again. One of the key things and ethoses we have within this partnership with Moonhub is finding people who really care about their subject matter, who really want to develop meaningful training. And that just doesn't mean coming out with training over and over again when it's not having the work put into it to make sure it's appropriate for social care, but also has that background as well. So yeah, thanks for the little segue there, Claire.
No worries. So Paul's got quite a few questions. I think we might have answered a couple of them. How have you managed digital inclusivity for those using the VR headsets?
Yeah, so shall I take that, Claire?
Yeah, you take that one.
Okay, so digital inclusivity, I think there's a few aspects to this. I think one, natural language is extremely accessible. So many people who may not be able to read or write as well. So again, everything's on a scale. They can see this both visually and hear this. So this is important. A lot of the key action points are obviously written. So again, if someone even has struggle of hearing, for example, they're able to see the situation, then be able to still act upon it. And I think we are looking at, different subtitles and things like that. So that is in future modules, we're looking at different subtitles just to improve on that. In terms of actually using this training, it is simply a case of turning the headset on, clicking on your username, and you're logged in. So in terms of how technologically adept you have to be, it's really quite lightweight.
So the next question is the training only being completed within a training environment, or is it available to be used in people's own homes, considering green and sustainability? I mean, it can be done anywhere, can't it? But I think it's just getting the headsets to people, because obviously what you need is the headset. And if you've got a limited number of headsets, then staff do need to travel to the a central hub to be able to access the headset. Obviously, if they really do massively come down in price in coming years, then maybe each staff member can just have one and at home that they can access training on. Have you any issues with Wi-Fi or connectivity? That's not an issue, is it, Charles? And it's only for when you first download the training onto the headset, then I don't think you need to be connected to Wi-Fi to actually use it, do you? Because it's all in the headset.
Yeah, to actually experience the content, you won't need to, but then in order to upload it onto the Moonhub, it needs to be connected at any one time. So it is important to have Wi-Fi. It works best in terms of having that data then feed back to the data hub. So I always suggest to use Wi-Fi. Just to give you a run through of what that looks like within the headset, it is a case of pressing one button, which takes you to the settings page. You click on Wi-Fi, and then you click on the Wi-Fi you want and enter the password. So again, I think whether it's Pico, whether it's Oculus, or any of the other sort of hardware manufacturers at the moment, they understand accessibility is a huge thing with virtual reality. I think that we have been so used to these primitive VR applications and gaming use cases that we still have that viewpoint and that perspective. Whereas virtual reality has come so far and now is used in enterprise training and healthcare training, and has become, as I say, so much more advanced, but so much more accessible, so much more cost effective, that I think when you experience this, and increasingly when you experience more virtual reality training over the next few years, you will be quite shocked, if you haven't before used it, exactly how easy it is to use.
Great. Maxine's asked about potential for helping unpaid family carers. Yes, I think it does have that. Obviously, you've seen the process that we've been through to write these scenarios, and I think we'd need to, there'd need to be new scenarios written from the point of view of understanding a home carer scenario, because you need to think what do you want people to learn from this, and the expectations we might have of a home care provider who's caring professionally to the scenarios that, while it might be the same experience, what we might expect from a family carer or what they might need in that situation might be different from a professional who's in there for a 30-minute care visit. So it does have potential, but I don't think we can just directly take these scenarios and give them to other audiences. The specific thing about them is they are specific to the learner and their workplace. Catherine said about it would be amazing to see the viewpoint of somebody living with dementia, and for example, how the black floor mat could look like a hole in the floor. And we did talk about that when we were designing it, but the challenges are within the technology of that, because you have to, everything, as you've seen, is filmed in a real room. So then to start doing things like making the black mat morph into a hole in the floor, you start getting into things that then lose their reality. So, and I don't think you can always, so it may be that's much easier to do in the future, but I think we can see that through observing Irene and her reaction. We can still get that same experience as seeing it ourselves. But yeah, we did talk about that, but it's not quite as straightforward as you might anticipate. And what we didn't want was an environment, and this is not how Moonhub works, where it's kind of AI generated and it's like a non-realistic scenario, because then that actually detracts from you actually being in Irene's house.
Claire, if I could just add to that as well, I think that was a huge part of our initial discussion when we developed it, is how much do we want to do around this, and how much do we want to, someone said about from Irene's point of view, and we decided that because of the different types of dementia, the different sliding scale, again, people can experience it in different ways, and people can experience their interactions with different people in different ways. In order to try to, there's one thing to say, this approach is the best approach, but even then there's caveats. And there's another thing to say, well, this is what Irene's thinking and feeling, and this is how she's viewing the world. And I think you then get into scientific questions on, okay, well, how does this impact someone? And then how do we then try to emulate that, but then try to emulate that on enough of a broader scale that it's applicable to more people than just Irene. So we've taken one step detracted from that and say, well, let's focus on the reactions and the interactions rather than try to delve into the head of Irene, because I think, as Claire said, that there can be a lot of different complications in doing that.
And probably we've got that chance for last one or two quick ones. Catherine's asked if there's scope to adapt material to the Welsh context. I mean, yes, presumably things are very adaptable. You could, everything's recorded separately and things, but so you could do a voiceover, and you could get rid of me and have somebody speaking Welsh on it, because it's all scripted, and you could re-record. So I think there's lots of opportunities for this to be done in different languages, and I'm not sure how the films would work, but there could be refilming in different languages, or there might be opportunities to be able to dub over if that was feasible. But I'd suggest contacting Charles about that, but there's no reason why it couldn't happen, or these could be adapted slightly with subtitles for people who want the Welsh language. And then Amy's asking, are you at any events, Charles, because she would like to go to a demo or see more of it. Oh, you're on mute.
Muted.
Sorry, I will be at the Care Show on the 11th to 12th of October. I can bring a headset with me. It's not a case that Moonhub are actually there with the stand, but I'll be there, and we're doing a speech sort of on VR and AI. So again, I can definitely bring a headset, and if you catch me there, definitely. If you would like a demo or anything like that, I can always arrange it with the Moonhub team as well. And depending on where you're located, etc., they can even come out in person, as we have done with many people. So yes, is the short answer.
And I would like to say that we'd definitely like you at UKDC next year to report on and all the developments. They Charles and Claire spoke last year, and yes, it'd be great to have you next year to catch up with everything.
We will do an abstract soon.
really brilliant. I think I speak on behalf of everybody. Thank you very much indeed. That was fantastically informative. And the videos, if people want videos, they just go to Charles directly, because we could put some of this along with the recording probably on the website on our YouTube. We'll talk about that. We can add to that recording if we want to, I think. So thank you very much. Is there anything else I should say? Thank you all for coming. Beth, anything else? No? Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Claire, very much
You're
indeed,
welcome.
and everybody for today.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Bye.